Hi guys, okay, so I'm doing a reply video for KittyTheDreamer. Hi Kitty, basically, yeah, so I wanted to do this video in regards to hedge crossing. You done a video that talked about crossing the hedge, the idea of crossing into this other world and you know, going past this boundary point. First of all, I really enjoyed your video. I found it really exhilarating to actually watch a video that talks about hedge-witchery and hedgecraft, as I find that hedge-witchcraft is quite a valid part within my practice. So much to talk about, but basically, yeah, I'm just going to kind of give some of my thoughts and experiences about hedge crossing and what it means to me and within my practice. Now, to me, hedge crossing is a very shamanic thing. It's a very shamanic path. For me, hedge crossing involves the use of psychoactive herbs and hallucinogenic plants and herbs. And one thing that I do use within my practice is known as flying ointment, which I'm showing here. Give it a bit of a shake. Now, I mean, to anybody, I kind of just want to state and say that unless you know what you're doing, don't start to use psychoactive drugs and psychoactive herbs and stuff like that, because it can be very dangerous and they can kill you. Now, flying ointment, this recipe in particular, is taken from a 13th century, no, I think it may be 16th century, well, it's very old anyway, it's a couple of 100 years old, and I stuck to the recipe. The only change I made within this is I substituted baby fat for almond oil, because it's very hard to get babies these days. Joke. But yeah, so I substituted it with almond oil, and there are a few things I have actually added in within myself. Again, there are various ways in which people apply flying ointment, but it is very powerful. It does give this effect of this sort of vivid trance-like state, and I find that flying ointment does actually help me fly out of my body and travel to other worlds. So for instance, if I want to travel into other people's dreams, if I want to do something within the other world, or go to another world to connect with my guide or familiar spirit or ancestors, I will do this via hedge crossing, and I will use flying ointment. Now, you said about Sarah Ann Lawless, and I actually have some of her satin flying ointment here as well. I really enjoy it. I use this during ritual, and the ingredients are belladonna, henbane, balsam poplar, buds, mullein, wolfsbane, yew, pig fat, and pure filtered beeswax. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't particularly smell that good, but it's kind of weird because it has the same smell as my flying ointment, so I know I must be doing something right. And this is a satin flying ointment, so this, I believe this was limited edition as well. One of my friends got given this by a client, and obviously knew what I got up to. And so yeah, but she has different other various types of flying ointments from her store, Black Arts Foundry. She has, I saw the other day, like a toad flying ointment, and I thought that was really, really cool. I've got a little bit of a fascination with toads and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the part of flying ointment. Another thing I wanted to say as well in terms of hedge crossing and crossing the hedge is that there's also, I was saying before about the shamanic element, the shamanic element to it. I found that there's a lot of, there's also shape-shifting involved as well. So I find that sometimes if I do travel, I will find that I will go in the form of different animals and different beasts or creatures. So for instance, there was one time where I actually travelled and flew out the window as a hare, and was running around the air, travelling to this other world. It was weird. What's interesting is that you said how when you were a little girl, Kitty, that you would quite often dream that you was flying, and that you would, you know, hedge crossing is a thing that you've been doing since you've been a little girl. And what's interesting, I never put two and two together, but I actually watched that video and was like, oh my god. When I was a kid, one of my earliest memories would be me flying. I had this reoccurring dream where I would be flying down the stairs, but not actually falling, but like floating and then jumping up and floating and being really floaty down the stairs. And then also, I'd have this other reoccurring dream where I'd be actually flying through the air and travelling with animals and all different crazy creatures. I mean, when I was a kid, I was quite open anyway, and I found it a lot more easier to hedge cross than I do now. It does, to me, it comes, you know, it is okay, but in order for me to hedge cross, like, people have to be out the house. This isn't something I can do with someone pottering around the living room. It's something for me which is really, really intense. When I was a teenager, I remember trying out astral projection for the first time and stuff like that, and it just was really, really easy to me. But now it's a lot more harder for me to do. It takes a lot more effort. I don't know why, but I suppose that practice makes perfect, and you know, this was something that did come very easy to me. Now I find that I have to use, not have to, but I do try to use various herbs and plants and stuff like that. I'm going to pause the video because I have a couple of things to show you that I use for trance work and stuff like that, and I will be right back, I promise. Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, so I'm going to show you a couple of the things that I use personally for hedge crossing. I find that if I use tools, it really helps me a lot more. You were saying about visualization and stuff like that, and I'm kind of with you on that. Visualization does play a part, but I feel like I need tools in order to actually reach this really deep, intense trance-like state, and in order to, for my fetch, my spirit to take flight. So, one thing I've got is something called a Troy stone, or a Maisie stone. This is very particular to the Cornish witchcraft tradition, particularly to a tradition of Roseanne Bucker, Gemma Gary's clan. I've only ever seen these within the sort of Cornish witchcraft movement, but normally the stone is actually engraved. However, I've actually painted it white. It does kind of look a little bit like Tipex, which is, you know, fail, but it's really weird. Traditionally a Maisie stone, maize comes from the Cornish term which means mazed, which means maddened, kind of drunk. It's to be put on like slate. So I found this natural slate in a quarry and I had to fight for this. But this works perfectly within a room that's dark with candlelight. The white really stands out and it helps me go into a trance. Particularly some people follow their fingers around the labyrinth, chanting or maybe doing a droning or a humming sound. For me, I find that actually just staring at it really sort of sends me in this deep and heavy trance. And in terms of certain herbs and stuff like that, as a substitute for people that do want to try it and burn herbs to get them in a very crazy state, mugwort and wormwood. These herbs are actually a lot more safe. They're going to be a lot more safe than mandrake or aconite, wolfsbane, hemlock, henbane. They're going to be a lot more safe. Try it, have a charcoal and burn a little bit, don't throw heaps on because again, it can get too much, but you can throw a little bit of mugwort on, a little bit of wormwood on and use that within your practice. That's also something that does help me, as well as sometimes when I burn crazy herbs. I do have a necklace for crossing the hedge, however, it's actually currently in use with something. My friend got me it, it's on one of my other videos, it's a haul that I done, and basically the necklace is a hedgehog, it's a hedgehog's foot, and one of my friends found the poor little thing on by the side of the road and, you know, put him to use. And so that I love that necklace because he also has, it's wrapped around, yeah, it's got air, water and earth wrapped around it. Being the three main, you know, sort of elements that people will hedge cross into. Hedge crossing into fire I've not particularly heard of, I'm sure there's cases. But yeah, so there's that on it, and then obviously the hedgehog paw. Another thing I do use, how very cliche, but I use this broom. I use a broomstick. This is something that I will use when crossing the hedge. I have various sigils put upon here, being my own personal. At the top of this, I've carved into it like a phallic symbol here. And again, this is something that I will use for crossing the hedge. I may just lay down on the floor and just hold the broom, or maybe have the broom around my legs and I'll rock back and forth. And that is something that aids me as a steed or as a vessel. I also find that some people, you know, within folklore, there's like half broken eggshells. A lot of people didn't leave eggshells out because there was a fear that witches would use them to travel by sea overnight, so a lot of people broke their eggshells. So sometimes I have done rituals where I've had halved eggshells. So that's something I've done, and also moths as well, as in, you know, flying to various places via moth flight, you know, having a moth in a container and you know, enchanting it, and then of an evening opening up the container and sending the moth out, and then applying flying ointment, going down and, you know, going deep into a trance. Oh God, there's so many other things that you can use for hedge crossing as well that helps me, like valerian root tea. Smells like smelly socks and smelly feet, but dear God, it gets me in a very trance-like dream state, and they're one of the dream herbs as well, herbs that help people go into a dream. Another good tea to make is passion flower tea. If you want lucid dreams and you want to go hedge crossing, and you know that you want to do something in regards to dreaming, like dream magic, maybe penetrating somebody else's dreams, stuff like that, is use passion flower as a tea, as a herbal tea. And that's something that sometimes if I cross the hedge, I will have a tincture on my altar charging overnight, and then drink the potion before I actually, you know, engage in flying, and then I'll apply my ointment. So yeah, there's loads of different things that I do, and I just kind of wanted to share some of them with you because I saw your video and I was very, very excited, because Hedge-Wytchery is a big part of my practice, and I do find it's very important to keep that shamanic aspect there of Hedge-Wytchery. I'm going to try and cut it short. I'm going to tell you an experience I had towards the end of the video, but one more thing I wanted to say was, you raised a good point how not a lot of people actually talk about Hedge-Wytchery and anymore, and how not a lot of people actually, you know, this isn't something that's normally done quite a lot, and I find that very sad, because I find that hedge witchcraft and crossing the hedge, or, you know, fetch flight is very, very rewarding. It's very rewarding in the way that I can meet my guides or familiars or ancestors and do things there. You know, I find it, you know, or maybe go into sort of affect other people or stuff like that, or carry on some work that I'm doing, and just in the sense of also the traditional, which is Sabbat. I've had very intense experiences with that. Okay, so I can't say too much about this experience I had, but I will tell you something that happened to me, and it was absolutely terrifying. I remember once, I had never ever used flying ointment before, and I had made a batch of flying ointment, and it was dry herbs that I used, and I rubbed in various areas of my body, sort of open pore areas, and I was quite nervous about this, and I thought, oh, it isn't working, have some more, put some more on, I thought, oh, this is crap, you know, it's not working, and I thought, well, you can't feel, I couldn't feel anything, I couldn't feel dizzy, nothing like that, and I thought, we'll just start the ritual and see how you get on. And so I started the ritual, and I was sat there, and I thought, right, this is ridiculous, this isn't working, and all of a sudden I felt a hand push my head like that, and it was almost as if I completely was pushed back, but everything slowed down. The whole room had slowed down, and all I could see was me lowering down on the floor in the candlelight. And as I actually laid down, as I looked up, I saw a black goat, this black goat-like figure, almost like a were-goat, and it was hilarious because a month after I started watching the series Salem, and they have exactly the same goat. Well, not exactly the same, but it was very, very similar. So yeah, it made me chuckle a bit. But basically, this goat kind of looked like if you crossed a man with a goat. It was very sabbatic, and it was quite terrifying. And as I laid down, this goat's mouth opened up, and I saw like a serpent's tongue, and I felt my mouth open up. And I can't do the noise effect, stuff like that, but it was like a heavy breathing, but just went on and on and on, like I can't even explain it. And from this goat's mouth came this white mist, and this white mist went into my mouth, and I was just laid there like fixed, and I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, all I could do was think and breathe, and it was quite frightening, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not sure if this is such a good idea. And then off I went. I flew, and I went off, and it was to do something, it was something to do with the spirit. There was a certain spirit I needed to do something with, and yeah, it worked. But it was something, it was an experience for me that was very, very frightening, but also very rewarding, and it was also an experience that I found that was very sabbatic and very, very witchy. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now, I'm going to shut up, but I really enjoyed your video, and here is my response on some of my thoughts and experiences of hedge-witchery or crossing the hedge. So yeah, over and out, and thank you for your video, it was awesome.